At first, there was just hope. Then there was rumours. Then there was confirmation. And now we're in the home straight of Verdansk returning to Warzone. However, we all know that Warzone right now is in a very disastrous state, so I put together a list of what I think the developers need to do to ensure that the return of Verdansk is a success. Let's get into it. First and foremost, the game needs to work at launch, and now for me this is probably the biggest thing that Call of Duty and the development team and everything body at Activision needs to get right. Warzone, and typically the dropping of maps in Warzone and sort of integrating things into Warzone, never really goes well. In fact, by saying never really goes well, it never goes well. Obviously, Black Ops 6 introduced a lot of bugs into Warzone, and Season 2 fixed quite a few of those bugs, and then created a lot more bugs, which has then made the game also very unplayable. So we need to get out of this cycle, and Verdansk needs to drop in a clean manner, it needs to drop in a well-working manner, and it needs to be as limiting game-breaking bugs as possible. Also, the performance of the game needs to be very, very smooth. Call of Duty, especially on PC, takes a lot of optimizing. That needs to be kind of stripped back and just needs to work upon launch, really. You got to think back to Warzone 1. That game did have bugs. It had a lot of bugs in it. There was bugs where people can get under the map. There was bugs where people could drive a quad bike into a certain part of the out of bounds bit and crash the server. That game had a lot of bugs. However, the performance of the game and how smooth the game was very, very good. You know, we can all remember how well that game played in terms of its core gameplay, and a lot of the community sort of overlooked those bugs. So yes, there will be bugs, no doubt about that. I'm saying it needs to drop in a clean state. There obviously will be bugs. It's modern gaming. There's always bugs. Fortnite has bugs. Apex has bugs. However, these bugs need to be less devastating to the game and sort of more just like, okay, that is a thing, but it doesn't impact me having a good time. And speaking of things that Call of Duty just loves to break when they add new things into Warzone, audio. Audio needs to be superb when Verdansk drops. Just focus an element on footsteps. That's all we're asking for. Tone down all the additional sound. You know, I shouldn't be able to hear a precision airstrike that's halfway across the map. I don't want to hear that. I just want to hear footsteps and directional audio. And that's all it needs. If you would improve that tenfold, then people wouldn't be like, you know, literally configuring game files and downloading like 3 different extensions onto their PCs just to use like Art as War audio. They would literally be happy with the game's audio. So that also needs to be crisp and clean when Verdansk drops. Warzone 1 at its core was incredibly simple for anyone to pick up and play. And I feel like that since the introduction of Warzone 2, Warzone has become an awful lot more complicated to play for casuals and especially new people and sort of returning players to the game. Obviously, we've reverted away from the backpack system back to pretty much what we were like in Warzone 1. However, in the game right now, there's still an awful lot of equipment and field upgrades that are just very confusing. The ground loot is very littered with all of this stuff. And for me personally, I think that just needs to be removed from the game and simplified to try and give us a little sort of, not like for like, but sort of bring it back more in line with the original Warzone experience that many people knew and loved. And it's not just the gameplay that needs simplifying, it's things like weapons as well. You know, right now in Warzone, we've got 4 different kinds of MP5. We've got the Lockman Sub from Modern Warfare 2. Then we've got the Lockman Shroud, which is a burst MP5, again from Modern Warfare 2. Then that Lockman Shroud has a aftermarket attachment from Modern Warfare 3, which you can use on a Modern Warfare 2 weapon that makes that gun also full auto, so therefore you've now got 2 full auto MP5s as well as a burst MP5. And then Black Ops 6 added the C9 into Warzone, which means that we have 3 full auto MP5s and 1 burst MP5. And you see where the confusion and the lack of simplicity comes from, given the fact that we've got, say, 4 variants of 1 SMG. I was trying to build a Car 98 on Warzone the other day, and I was scrolling down the sites to try and find what site I wanted. The amount of attachments that is in this game is just absolutely insane. Again, simplify it. We don't need 50 sights and sort of 50 underbarrel grips and stuff like that in the game. We just need, at very best, we need 3 or 4. Pretty much, there's only 1 set of attachments that are meta. We all know that there's only 1 set of attachments that is meta. So why are we bothering with all these different attachments? Just simplify the game. One more thing that needs simplifying, especially when it comes to terms of movement, is the amount of settings that is in this game right now. Now, Omni movement is obviously sort of transformed movement in Call of Duty. For me personally, I'm actually a big fan of it. I feel like I wouldn't want to play Call of Duty without Omni movement now. A few people say that it doesn't really belong on a Call of Duty Battle Royale. It should be a multiplayer only thing. For me personally, I think this movement system is going to stay in Call of Duty for many years to come now, and it's kind of going to be the base movement system that we're going to have. However, the amount of settings that goes with this movement system is absolutely insane, and it is enough to throw off anybody that, 1, is returning to the game for the first time since Verdansk, or 2, new players who are trying to come in and learn the game and have to tweak all these settings to get the best movement they can possible. Simplify them. Again, just keep things simple. Call of Duty, I've always said, works best when it is just a simplistic arcade shooter, and that's what we want from the return of Verdansk. Now, Verdansk might be recognised as the greatest Warzone map that we've ever had, and that's fair enough to say. I probably would agree with that. However, there was a lot of things wrong with that map, and one of those things was the map lighting. Recently, the developers managed to break the lighting, especially on Rebirth Island, when they integrated Black Ops 6 into Warzone. Now, this for me doesn't really bode well or fill me with confidence, given the fact that I remember how dark the inside of buildings were on Verdansk. And it led to the surge in popularity of the Rose skin, which essentially became a pay-to-win skin. I think it was a tier 100 skin in the Battle Pass, which once that Battle Pass was gone, you couldn't get it again. And this was so bad that in the end, the developers couldn't fix the lighting in the map, so they made this skin lighter. That's how insane it was. Now, right now, in Warzone, we have the frontman from Squid Game, which is an all blacked out skin, and we've had Black Noir from The Boys in Warzone for a long time. If Verdansk drops with that same lighting, I can guarantee you that pretty much 90% of the lobby will be dropping in wearing those skins. The lighting needs to be improved drastically. They managed to sort it out somewhat with Rebirth Island, so I'm hoping they can do the same with Verdansk. Another thing with the modern era of Warzone is that the vehicles are just appallingly bad to use. So, this is my plea to the developers. Give us back the original Verdansk vehicles and give us back exactly how they performed. No one uses vehicles right now to rotate in Warzone because of how bad they are. And I'm not saying that we need armoured trucks that accelerate from 0 to 100 miles an hour within a split second. However, those vehicles were fun to use and it brought an arcadey feel to Warzone. And that's what Call of Duty is. It's an arcade shooter. It's not some sort of mil sim. It is an arcade shooter and it needs to be treated like that. It doesn't need to be this sort of hyper modern sort of, realistic thing. Give us the fun back. I remember flying around the map in an SUV and being able to jump out on enemies and get the jump on them because they're still tracking the car and you can shoot them instantly and stuff like that. That was fun to do. That was a great strat to do. It took a little bit of mastering as well. Creates a skill gap in the game. Whereas right now, I can sort of trundle along in a sort of an armoured SUV that takes forever to accelerate. And if I'm getting shot at, I can't get away from them either. And another reason why vehicles don't really get used anymore in Warzone is because of the amount of portable redeploy drones that are lying around the map. You can ban them on buy stations, you can find them in the ground loot, and basically you can get yourself across the map within a matter of seconds rather than trying to use a slow vehicle that takes forever to try and traverse the map. I think that if you're wanting us to use vehicles in Verdansk, you're going to have to sort of wind back these portable redeploy drones and maybe just have sort of static ones across the map. However, this can all be combated by just, as I said, give us the original vehicles. And then there just needs to be map changes in general, really. I'm really looking forward to seeing what version of Verdansk drops in the spring. I wonder if it's going to be just a sort of a Modern Warfare Verdansk, or if it's going to be something similar like a Cold War Verdansk. Me, personally, I would love to see the two sort of combined into some sort of hybrid Verdansk. So I would like to see the factory element next to Superstore that's in the middle of the map kept in, because that obviously wasn't in the Modern Warfare version. However, I would like to see the stadium from the Modern Warfare version in this sort of era, as make sure that it's all open as well. And then I would like to see the likes of Nakatomi Plaza, I don't know if they've still got the licensing for that, in downtown area. I feel like there was those kind of little POI shifts that were between the different maps that just made the game a little bit more fun, a little bit more fresh. So I would like to see a hybrid of the two. Or we could be getting a totally brand new Verdansk that we've never played on before, which, again, could be a possibility. Who knows? As long as the sort of the basis of the POI still exists, then, no, it could be something totally brand new. And for me, personally, I think I'll be alright with that as well. But going forward in Verdansk's life cycle throughout this next few months, apparently we are going to get a Warzone map towards the end of this year as well, in the form of Avalon. I would like to see the POIs freshly updated each season. Changes made to them, sort of destroy stuff, change stuff. Don't put a crater in the middle of the map like you typically will do all the time anyway. Tweak things, make things better, keep it fresh, keep the game feeling good. That's what I want to see. And I also want to see the return of in-game events into Warzone. I think we can all remember the original Haunting of Verdansk. That was such a good event. It's by far and above the best event we've ever had in Warzone. And that was almost 5 years ago now. So I would love to see things like that being brought into Verdansk and keeping it fresh. Now, I know I've already said that I want to see portable redeploy balloons scaled back just ever so slightly so that we can have a resurgence of vehicles again. However, the original Verdansk didn't have the stationary redeploy balloons, so this map, 1, needs to drop with them, 2, it needs to drop with more zip lines in the downtown area, both vertical and horizontal like what we have in Urzikstan and sort of Rebirth Island and stuff right now, to make pushing those bigger buildings a bit easier. And then for smaller buildings across the map, I want to see the jump up spots improved drastically. I feel like since Caldera onwards, the developers have been very good at creating jump up spots for smaller buildings, whereas in Verdansk we didn't have them. It was sort of very, very easy to camp. Also, ATC in the airport, just get rid of it. I don't want to see a zipline to it. I don't want to see a horizontal zipline to it. I don't want to see anything to it. Just get rid of that POI, please. Then my final map/gameplay change that I want to see for Verdansk coming back is I want to see the lobby return to 150 players. Obviously, Urzikstan dropped with 100 players and then got boosted with 120 players. I feel that game, the pacing's still way off. I feel like Verdansk suits 150 players. It needs 150 players to keep the flow going. And it also needs to see a reduction in flares and Gulag tokens and redeploy tokens and all that. It needs to go back to somewhat of a more punishing battle royale. It never was the most punishing battle royale because you can obviously be brought back by teammates. However, I feel like we need a Gulag and then that's it. I don't think there should be Gulag tokens. There shouldn't be flares. Shouldn't be anything like that. There just needs to be stripped back 150 players. Stakes are higher than what they are right now in Warzone. It needs to be sort of removed away from this sort of glamorous resurgent mode, and it just needs to be how it was back in the original Verdansk. The fact that we're still talking about the huge cheating problem in Warzone in 2025, 5 years on from the launch, is absolutely insane. However, this is the situation that we're still in. Call of Duty still does not really have a functioning anti-cheat. Now, cheaters were absolutely rampant in Verdansk to the point where a lot of big creators decided that they weren't going to play the map anymore because of how bad the cheating problem was. And a few of those creators never really came back to Call of Duty. Right now, in Warzone, cheaters are plaguing mainly ranked. However, if Verdansk was to drop, obviously they're gonna infect pubs and stuff like that as well. So Call of Duty needs to warn up its anti-cheat game very quickly. It needs to have a Valorant style kernel level driver anti-cheat. That's the only way to combat this. If it doesn't, then Warzone is cooked. And at the end of the day, Call of Duty is only going to get a second chance to make a first impression with Verdansk. If people who have never played this game since Verdansk left come back to it and still see the amount of cheaters that there was back in 2020 or 2021 when the map went, well then we're going to have a big problem and the player count will once again drop. Now, when the original Warzone dropped on March 10th, 2020, the world was a very different place to what it is now. Obviously, due to the COVID pandemic sort of gripping the globe, a lot of countries shut down. We couldn't go out. We couldn't see friends. So gaming became an escape for this. And people who had never played Call of Duty for years had hopped online and were dropping into Verdansk with people they never even spoke to in years. And they were playing this new, fresh game. You know, people were learning it. People were enjoying playing it. Viewer counts for Warzone and Call of Duty went at an all-time high after years and years of Call of Duty slumping through yearly release after yearly release. This was something new and big for Call of Duty. Now, fast forward 5 years, a lot of that player base has gone, it's fair to say, and the player base that remains are a lot more experienced at Warzone than what they were back 5 years ago. You know, it's now very much I wouldn't say a hardcore fan base, but a casual player base is very much dwindled. And I think because of this, there needs to be managed expectations of what the community will get from this version of Verdansk. Now, people of my age, I'm 30 in essentially less than 2 weeks now, and I remember playing COD 4, World at War, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 2, that golden age of Call of Duty, and I look back at those years with just incredible nostalgia, and I think that those were the best times of Call of Duty ever. And I know that these times will never ever come round again, purely because of where I was in life. You know, I was kind of just at secondary school. The only thing I really had to worry about was homework. I didn't have to worry about, you know, any pressures of adult life. And now fast forward to 2025 and Verdansk is about to drop again. I feel like a new generation of Call of Duty players are about to get this same smack in the face of the fact that Call of Duty and nostalgia, while it's great in principle, it never really works. This game is drastically different now than what it was 5 years ago. And I think that if Verdansk is going to be a success, when it returns, the community needs to have managed expectations about what it's going to be. Don't get me wrong, I feel like Verdansk will bring a lot of players back, and it will bring a lot of hype back to Call of Duty, and I feel like it's right to be able to get excited about that. It should be great to be able to get excited about that. However, given the state of what Call of Duty has been in over the last few years now, especially since Warzone 2 dropped, Warzone has seen this massive decline, and I feel like there's not a lot of faith there anymore with the development team, and this is probably their last chance to sort of bring back this optimism that we know that they can serve up. So it's going to be very interesting for me to see how the community react to Verdansk when it drops later this year. Just some final thoughts, because I think this has been a very long-winded ramble. It's very clear that Activision are banging on Verdansk saving Call of Duty. They've obviously seen the success that sort of nostalgia can bring back to Battle Royales, especially in terms of Fortnite and that OG map coming back. So Activision are obviously weighing very, very heavily on this being a success. And as I've just said, Verdansk will 100% bring players back to the game. There's no doubt about that, but it's going to take more than Verdansk to get those players to stick around. However, if the game continues on the trend that we've seen over the last few years in terms of integrations not being good, the game being really buggy, cheat has been absolutely rampant, then there is no way in hell that Verdansk will save this game, and Warzone will officially begin to decline even further than what it already has. And there's even more added jeopardy now to the fact that Activision need Verdansk to essentially save Warzone, because Battlefield has released sort of pre-alpha footage this week, and let me tell you, that game looks insane. It's going to be a modern shooter, and it's going to well and truly rival Call of Duty if that game drops. We all know that recent games in the Battlefield franchise haven't really been great on launch, and therefore haven't been able to rival Call of Duty. However, it looks good so far, and there is also rumour to be a Battle Royale coming with it. Now, I will say that in terms of Call of Duty, obviously it shares a player base with other games. In terms of Fortnite, people who play Fortnite will play Call of Duty. People who play Call of Duty will play Apex. Vice versa. Even things like Marvel Rivals are sort of hemorrhaging some of Call of Duty's player base right now. However, those games don't really appeal to me because they're not really like Call of Duty. But Battlefield is very much like Call of Duty. I remember spending hundreds of hours on games like Bad Company 2 and Battlefield 3 back in the day. So if Verdansk fails and Battlefield's good, then you can definitely see a lot of Call of Duty community shifting over to Battlefield, and I feel like that's why Activision are very much banging on Verdansk. However, if they are banging on Verdansk, then it needs to be done right. Obviously, only time will tell if Verdansk is going to be a success. It needs to drop clean, it needs to drop well, and it needs to drop with a lot of hype. However, if it doesn't, then I feel like we'll be absolute curtains for Warzone, and I feel like we'll need to totally strip back the game and reset and go again, which I don't think Call of Duty can afford to do. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below about Verdansk coming back, and I'll catch you in the next one.